Okay, I have very important information about this shooting. Keep in mind the same types of people who did the shooting are persecuting me, and they're changing the sound of my voice. I have a long history of saying things that are very controversial and sometimes hard to believe and proving that I'm right and being proved right. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a brain surgeon's son, the son of 2 doctors. I have a college degree, okay, and I talk about facts and I connect logical dots. For example, in the word Texas, we see that it's an anagram for at sex. Does this check out? Yes, because one of the popular sexual positions is the cowgirl position, and reverse cowgirl, whatever. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, right? ICE, connect that to justice, just ICE, right? And it's immigration and customs enforcement, right? It has to do with the migrations of people and races, and the customs of the races here in America, including the whites and Jews who tend to dominate the country, who are the big money in the country, what have you, right? Not just Elon Musk and the Waltons, okay, but there's also very global families involved. I mean, those basically are they're basically from global families, but you have the Mars family, the Sacklers, the Sachs, okay, and so on and so forth. Everyone knows the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, but there's a lot more to it than that. This particular event was something that was caused by the governing class, and they're likely to do one of 2 things. One, blame left-wing radicals, which is the most likely scenario, okay, and 2, to say that right-wing people funded groups on the left or an individual or caused this to happen so that they could blame left-wing people for a lot of the terrorist activities we've seen going on here, a lot of the shootings, a lot of these sort of activities. That's very important to note here. You're going to see that the names of the suspect and the victims also are part of the wordplay. I'm calling this right now, okay? That's gone on consistently without fail. Whenever there's been a major event like this, the wordplay there is very key. We've seen words that are biblical words like Isaiah and Jeremiah. We've seen various wordplay line up. Like, for example, London Breed, right? London Breed. Okay, and America is part of what's known as the Anglosphere, and this Freemasonry is said to start in England. And you have Gavin Newsom, right? Gay, Vine, Newsom. And we've seen a rise in LGBT activity and expression over the years. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so now you should all see that I'm right about the wordplay and how this game of theirs is working. In fact, the word game is the word mage scramble. Now, how does this shooting connect to me? Well, you should see my Proof I'm Christ playlist. Again, this is probably the most controversial claim I made. And then countless people have conceded my point over the years. So I made this claim in about 2019 or 20. Okay, what happened is then the coronavirus hits. Coronavirus, cor on a virus, right? On is Heliopolis, right? See Genesis 41:45. It's Ra's cult center. Ra in Hebrew means evil. Ra in the ancient Egyptian mythology system is a deity associated with the sun. Most more specifically, Ra is God symbolized by the sun. And we see that lines up with Psalm 19, where the sun symbolizes the bridegroom and God, the champion, right? The martial art champion who's connected to Psalm 18 and Exodus 15:3 and Isaiah 42:13 and Proverbs 34. And we see that the logic is sound. I'm very well versed in the Bible, but more importantly, I have a top martial arts challenge, $100 million if you can win. If I'm compensated, pay nothing if you lose. $60,000 to $100,000. I think I'm at $100,000 now, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's $100,000 if I'm not compensated, and still pay nothing if you lose. And I've had this challenge. It started off with less money initially, then I almost immediately raised it to a lot more. I've had this challenge since 2013, December 20th, 2013. Marshall is marital scramble. Okay, and they try to make it so I sound cocky. They're fueling me. They're poisoning me. By now you should know about the gang stalking. You should realize that it goes on. Millions of Americans are involved in gang stalking activity one way or another. Okay, they're parts of various groups, gangs, corporate groups, political groups, teachers, secret societies in general, cults, social clubs, gentlemen's clubs, what have you. Okay, I'm not gay. They try to make it so I sound gay. I'm not cocky. They try to make it so I sound cocky. I don't have a mental illness. I'm not bipolar. I'm not schizophrenic. Okay, they're trying to play an image game, right? The word image has the word game scrambled into it, and his I, and the second part of it is mage, right? Magic tricks, illusion, smoke and mirrors. You should see that I'm right. At this point, if you're still watching the video, you should not be full of regrets. You should know that this is important information. The word slaughter is the word laughter scrambled. It's very important here. And they're also very concerned with dating, right? They control things. Part of it is rates, right? Rate and date, right? Date refers to, a time, right? Time and date. And timing. So really quickly, we look at the date wordplay. You see these people are very sick. They're not just poisoning and raping and killing people. They're also looking at it in terms of kill rates and the rates of things, right? Rate, late, date, fate, mate, hate. And again, I don't sound like some kind of gay person. In fact, let me lower my windows here real quickly. Okay, now that I've lowered my windows, you should see that my voice changed unless they edit the video to cover that up. They've done all kinds of editing in my videos, just like they've changed the look of Martin Luther King and Tupac. Look at his pictures. If you're my age, I'm 44, you should see that I'm right. If you're 30, you should see that I'm right. They've changed the look of people over the years, and they're doing it for surrealism, right? Which is basically getting people to disassociate from reality, like the Disney occult or something, in various ways, while they try to make certain rich people and their offspring and the people in sex cults and reproductive cults, okay, that they have all over the place, including in poorer areas. They're trying to make them seem ideal. Even the word ideal is a play on words for I lead, right? The word deal is lead, the word lead scrambled. So you're going to see a lot of what's gone on in this case here has to do with wordplay, has to do with eugenics, has to do with scientific racism, has to do with a bunch of arrogant nerds and worms and in fancy suits. It has to do with culture and mere human rules, customs, and traditions. And if you think that you should kiss their ass, that's what Americans thought before the coronavirus. They were kissing the governing class's ass with the best of them, okay? Having their kids and their sex cults, doing everything they tell them. And still over a million Americans died during the coronavirus pandemic. And demos, right? Demon, right? Demos meaning people. Pandemic, pan meaning all, for all the Greco-Roman deities, right? Greek societies and college. The Club of Rome said to be the most powerful secret society on the planet. Miller's speech the other day where he cited that the roots of Western culture in Athens and Rome. And the word Rome is more scrambled. So these greedy people always want more, who killed Christ symbolically in the Bible. Now this situation is a bit tricky, but it's not very tricky. For example, there's been over 1,000 assaults on ICE officers. 1,000. Right? And that makes it so a bunch of these guys who maybe from the South or the Midwest or from very white areas, and a lot of the kind of conservative leaning types in California and other places, that they take on a very hostile stance toward the population. But they already had a hostile stance before, the first ICE officer was assaulted during Donald Trump's presidency, right? During this latest term, right? This year. And the word ICE is like the word ISIS. Because yes, Republicans, conservatives, historically terrorize Americans. There was 5 to 6 million members of the Second Klan in the 1920s. The Klan started shortly after the Civil War, and there's still well over 10,000 members of the Klan still here in America. Then there's other groups who are basically white supremacist groups, but there's a lot of confusion about why that is. They'll tell you one thing which isn't quite true and say that's the reason, but it's more complex than that. The Oath Keepers, the Minutemen, the Proud Boys, okay? Whenever you see a conservative group, they're basically willing to use force and dirty tricks to try to keep America a racist white country, to keep it simple. But in the Klan, you had more than just white people, even though their on record argument was that they were against Jews and gays and Catholics. They collaborated with these people a lot more than you might think. My research has revealed that clearly. In fact, there were even many, many Jews in the Klan. I think the simplest way to explain why some of them look Jewish is some of them were Jewish, and some of them are from, have shared ancestors with the Jews. These people with these kind of, a lot of people point to the noses, and I've noticed a lot of these people do have larger noses than most people, but so do a lot of people in the Middle East. It gets a little tricky on that one. But certainly when you look at their sum total looks, yes, that's a part of this. The people who run the world and cause all these horrible things to happen are certain types of whites, Jews, and LGBT people from certain families. My research has proven that definitively. Okay, they trace their roots to Greece and Rome. The Greeks and the Romans, their aristocracy were by default connected to the Babylonian aristocracy. That's where they got these chariots, right? They came from the Middle East, etc. And so these Greek deities were very much associated with their chariots, not just Helios. Okay, and that was a testament to their roots in the Middle East. And ultimately, their systems come from West African, really not West African, but African witchcraft, which was most pronounced in West Africa, because West Africans are like the most intense Africans, the most ambitious. It's a story for another day. But clearly, the main people doing this are whites, rich Jews, and rich LGBT people. And part of the game they're playing is to see who's so much of a punk as to pretend that's not the case. I mean, somewhere around 60% of whites Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Why would they pretend that the governing class isn't pure evil, isn't racist, right? The more things that prove that they're wrong and they shouldn't be in charge, that they can bring up, they should bring up. But some are dumb enough to try to pretend that they're not racist. And why they pretend that, they're also doing eugenics on them. And that is huge in why these things are happening. That's a big part of why these shootings are happening. They're distracting you from a much more important issue, which is people are being evil. People are turning a blind eye to the massacre that's going on this planet, soft killing, starvation, drug overdoses, what have you. Okay, and the root cause of it isn't, the cartels, right? For example, the people starving to death all over the world aren't starving to death because of the cartels. It's because the governing class has kill rates and quotas. And so when you play stupid about these things, you're like handing your kids over to get molested. You're handing your families over to be massacred. The answer is to rally to me. The opposition view does not want you to rally to me. And they're suppressing my videos to a large degree. And when I hand out cards and stuff, people don't respond because of their cultures, because they're conditioned to follow a bunch of goats to the slaughter.